Hey guys, GHAZZY TV here with another last Epoch build guide video, and this time I'm going to show you my starter and a little bit more. Now, I don't have gameplay footage in this video since I'm not allowed to. However, I do have gameplay footage to show you with the Chaos Bolt linked in the descriptions down below, because this is the build I was showcasing in the video that I showed you guys 2 Falconeer builds and 2 Warlock builds, and one of those is this one. Now, we do have a full written build guide for this on Icy Veins, and all you have to do is look at the descriptions below for the link to my guide hub, in which you'll see all of the build guides that I have readily available, and there's going to be more, including Falconeer builds, ready before launch on this page. This is a Chaos Bolt Harvest build, so by clicking in here, you'll see the full rundown of this. Loot filter and everything will be included once everything is locked down, which will be later tonight at the time of this recording, and I would recommend that you stay in with a leveling build when you play the game. GHAZZY 1.0 is having a significantly higher difficulty spike than we were used to, and this means that I would strongly recommend using a leveling guide. To access that, this is an Acolyte. You will hover over the Acolyte place. You'll then click on the Warlock leveling, and you'll get to the Warlock leveling guide that I've done myself together with my team. So do check that out on Icy Veins. All the links will be available in the descriptions below. Let me talk about the build itself though real quick here. This is a really cool high-performing Chaos Bolt build. We're going to be focusing a lot on using our Chthonic Fissure to make sure we apply acid versus bosses. That's 25% base added flat crit. And that means our Chaos Bolt needs to get to 75% or higher, and we're also going to be casting a lot thanks to our Twisted Heart of Chaos for the layers of defense. This means our idols are going to be stacking ward retention as well as HP, and we're going to have crit and health in our stout idols. We're going to be using a Twisted Heart of Chaos. If you get an LP1, make sure you try to focus on getting cast speed in there. Other modifiers such as intelligence or necrotic damage is good. Cast is very important. We're going to do the exact same thing with Mortality's Grasp as well. Again, if you're able to get more LPs and you want to look at your suffixes, health ones are not bad to go for either. Rings are crit based. We're going to use mana regen intelligence. You could use a Jewel Star Dial with 2 LP if you want to, and you can sort the resistances elsewhere for that matter. I'm going to use a movement speed belt for the clear speed with necrotic damage, mana regen, crit avoidance, and health. Boots are going to be going for high health, flat HP, intelligence, and movement speed. We can use a ward retention base arcane boots. The amulet is, because of the importance of cast speed based with crit multi necrotic damage and then some resistances. Our body armor is crit based again with intelligence and shared critical strike, because that's how we get more crit. Health and high percent HP is very important. The helmet is a flat spell damage providing Raven Crown. In here, we're going to be using intelligence and a rather rare mod that gives us a chance for our Chaos projectiles to shoot extra projectiles, which is insane. Resistances, and most importantly, try to get a percent HP in here. The offhand is rather important. Again, to scale the crit the best, we would like to have a Crystal Skull because it gives us flat crit strike chance. We want to focus on necrotic damage, crit multi, and resistances. If you can get cast speed, that's also fine. And then we're looking at Profane Wand, which is going to give us spell necrotic damage. It's normal Dragon Wand is fine as well. It gives spell damage, but a lower numerical value. So Profane Wand is the best one. In here, we're looking at increased spell critical strike chance, crit multi, and we want to have at least a tier 1 of Ignite on hit here. They don't have to be tier 5. Tier 1 will be enough. More of that in a bit. And then you want to focus on necrotic penetration. This makes the 1 very easy to craft since you don't need a tier 5 chance to ignite. A tier 1 is more than enough. You can even seal this if you want to. So that's basically the gearing approach of this character. And the idols, Blessing is very simple. We're going to go for crit multi, lightning rest, crit avoidance, shred necrotic resistances, but there's a little bit of a difference here. We're going to be running frostbite on hits. So let's go through why we have frostbite blessing and why we have ignites. Let's start with Chaos Bolt. First off, we're going to make sure we have maximum destructive intensity for that crit base. We're also going to make sure that we have the increased damage on hit with automatic rip blood. Also going for Devour the Damned, this is how we sustain the mana cost into more life on hit and curse refreshment, as well as getting the bone curse. Since Mortality's Grasp is going to allow us to literally mark enemies and hit, and since we're shooting so many projectiles, pretty much anything we touch is going to be cursed. That will automate the bone curse, which we're also speccing into. Then we're going to spec in 2 points for the area of effect to get 1 Chthonic Aurora. Not more, you're not going to sustain more. 1 you can actually sustain to get an additional projectile. Very effective. We're also going to pick up 2 points in damage, so we get access to Exalt in Misery. Now, this is why we have at least one source of Ignition and one source of Frostbitten. 3 points in this node makes us have a more damage multiplier, which is multiplicative with other modifiers, as long as the enemy is having 1 stack of Ignite, or 1 stack of Frostbitten, 1 stack of Bleed, 1 stack of Damned. Chaos Bolt will take care of the Damned itself. Blessing will take care of Frostbite. Our weapon Suffix will take care of the Ignite. Bleed, we are covering through our automated Rip Blood by having 5 points into Bleed, Gushing Wounds, and 4 points into Blood Splatter, so that we actually generate an AoE hit of this, so the enemies are actually bleeding. The actual Rip Blood will be spec'd into necrotic damage, so that we get extra skills from the Twisted Heart of Nukeros. We're going to make sure this provides us with Ward, since our Leech is going to cover our HP. 2 points to the Hemomancer is enough, since we're triggering it. We're not going to self-cast it, and we don't need to spec Thirst, because we're going to have no problem sustaining the mana cost. Maximize the health granted and the health restored per intelligence to further scale how much ward we're going to get from this. The Bone Curse itself is very straightforward. We're going to rush down to make sure that it is necrotic damage that gives us extra points to the build anyways. We're going to have this actually shred armor, and since this is triggering every time the enemy takes damage and we're shooting a ton of projectiles, we're going to ramp up armor shred so ridiculously high that it's going to hit diminishing returns to the point where it's not worth scaling more shred. Bone Curse is doing this for us. 5 points into Iron Maiden is just the leftover points we're going to waste when you don't have anything else to spec into in this tree, since it's going to increase the damage dealt by the actual Bone Curse. We get the kill threshold at 12%. Chthonic Fissure, we're going to take that last. Transplant, we are focusing obviously on Acolyte's Fervor, increasing our clear speed through haste and also frenzy. This means that the playstyle will be, because of the Warlock passive, which I'll cover in a bit, it's going to give us haste when we're killing packs of enemies for 2 seconds. So we're going to run through a pack of enemies, kill them, run for about 2 seconds, and then you want to use Transplant aggressively into the next pack of enemies. And if there's no enemies, you still have haste for 3 seconds to run even faster. But the frenzy gives us cast speed, so if you Transplant into a pack of enemies, you're going to have increased cast speed, as well as cursing them with Bone Curse through this node, but most importantly, lower cooldown, and then the armor from transplanting. So we have a defensive and offensive scaling, literally a literal initiator with Transplant. Chthonic Fissure is going to be very tricky. We start on the left-hand side. With a leveling guide, you don't take the double secondary Fissure, because you're not going to work mana-wise. You want to make sure you get Spirit, the frequency up, and necrotic rest stacks, and get the Spirit frequency here, and then you want to have the Chaotic Rupture. This makes our Chthonic Fissure spew out Chaos Bolts instead, and with more Spirits being cast or more often, the more often you're going to trigger this with 60% chance. This will cost mana. Do keep that in mind. That's why it's important that we have enemies cursed all the time, which is why we're using the Mortality's Grasp. And then obviously you're going to run double Fissure, because we can very easily sustain this. This node makes us get some mana back when we recast it. So versus a boss, for example, the enemy is cursed, you recast the Fissure, you're not going to notice it too much on the mana pool, as you'll be sustaining the Chaos Bolt either way. And lastly, we're going to pick up Acid Skin for that extra crit strike chance. This is saying 20%. It's 25 according to the patch notes. It's not in the planner yet. Passive-wise, we're going to be taking the Intelligence. Very important. We get a little bit of extra damage from here. Most importantly, we're going to pick up the Mania Mortality for the Ward on Death, as well as Ward Retention, which gives us some resistances. The Lich node is something I would wait till later as I'm progressing the higher endgame content, but obviously the nodes in here is going to be mana for the mana region, a little bit of damage and then more damage, but mostly these nodes are just to get our asses over to the mana and Ward Retention and the double intelligence with reduced health region. The Warlock tree is the important one. We get 5 points in here for the extra mana region, 5 points in here to scale more flat mana, and also the Ward Retention and damage outputs. This is very important. Harrowing armor gives you 50 flat armor, 50 flat life. It's not much. But the bonus modifier makes you get more armor per curse on the target. And we're going to have about 4 curses, 5 curses on the enemy, which gives us a ton of % more armor. And the armor is not very high in this version right now, but it does make a rather significant impact in terms of defensive layers. And we get ward per second and less damage taken per curse on the enemy targets. This allows us to have further scaling of defensive layers on the build, which makes it very, very sturdy in higher corruptions. We're also getting our leech from here, and since everything is going to be cursed, this is where 2.5% leech, which is more than enough to sustain us. We're going to take Malefic Body. This is giving us intelligence and vitality. We're making sure enemies is withered so that we take even less damage from enemies that are withered. We're going to have 5 points into the chaotic strikes, which is making us do double damage. Do keep in mind that if you're not level 100, this is the first node I would take points away from, but make sure you have 2 so you get access to the crit multi, however. Fleeting Crone, one of the strongest and most effective nodes of the Warlock tree. This is how we keep our clear speed up significantly high. As we kill a pack of enemies, we're going to have haste. You shoot a target, chaos bolts on a boss, you're going to have haste. So you can manually dodge abilities on the bosses because you're always going to have haste. And they're increasing that effect by 50 freaking percent. 50! This means that the 30% movement speed is actually 45% movement speed that you will pretty much consistently have. It's insanely effective. And then the Accursed Seer. Now this node is a bit tricky. I'm going to try to explain it real quick. It's fucking OP. All right? It's OP. You get cast speed, you get increased cast speed for curses. It's just so good. However, the bonus modifier here. If you, against all odds, manage to have enemies bring you down to low HP, and there's like a big pack of enemies you're shooting at, they're all gonna be cursed. And you're gonna do more than one curse. And if you, for some reason, manage to go down to low HP, what this does is it will cleanse all the curses from you, but it will also cleanse enemy curses within 15 meters. And for every curse cleansed, you get 100 ward. So I was limit testing this in the CT, and I managed to go down to low life. I had 3,000 ward, and suddenly things got dicey. I went down to low life, and I had no ward. And boom, I was up on 7,000 ward. It's so crazy. And what makes this so overpowered is that this has a 5-second cooldown. You think the Reaper form is a good layer of defense? Think again when you're looking at this node. It's nuts. Anyways, this is the build I will be starting with on stream when the launch happens on 21st of February. I do have a little bit of a mock-up. I don't think I'm ready to share it yet because it's not finalized, but I do want to showcase what I kind of want to do for higher endgame corruption. So I'm a little bit concerned that when you do super pushing corruption, that this build, because the layers of defense comes in twisted, it's not going to be enough to sustain it since the defensive layers is crit strike avoidance. So what I try to do is create a scenario where the crit is enough running a two-handed weapon so that I could run a Titan Heart. This is like a little bit of a mock-up. I just want to show you the idea of it. It's basically the same gearing, similar trees, the similar passive tree. The only difference here is that I'm not using Eucharos. I'm using a decaying homunculus with Caspian, necrotic, health, and void res in this case. And I'm running a very, very high-end gear. As you can see, we have +4 level chaos bolts in here. So it's a very, very, very high-end geared style that I put up here. But it's using Titan Heart for the less damage taken. And I changed the defensive layer to have reduced bonus damage taken on crits. I'm not sure if this is going to be enough to make it better than the other version. And since I'm not sure, I'll have to play test this. I'm going to try this out on stream, and we'll see if we're going to add this as a variation to the build guide or not. But this one here, I can guarantee works. I've done tier 4 Jura, I've done corruption pushing with it, and we'll see how this one fares. But I'm kind of excited to try out this specific style, since it makes it a little bit easier to farm some of the pieces. But I mean, you're talking about 2 LP Titan Heart, 2 LP Mortalities. You're gonna need a lot of HP and the crit strike avoidance. We'll see. I'm a little bit cautiously optimistic about this version, but I wanted to mention that this is something I'm working on and will very likely play test when the launch comes on 21st of February. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like I said before, check out the links down in the description below for the leveling guide and the actual written guide going fully in detail with this build. And we'll also have in the links descriptions below a link to the previous video where you can see the gameplay footage for this build. And no, I couldn't show you in this video. I was simply not allowed to, according to the agreement that Icy Veins and the 11th Hour Games have. So I do apologize for that, and I'm going to have to send you to another video. But make sure you hit the like button on both videos and hit the subscribe button. Leave a comment down below what you think of this build and what your league's starting with. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Till then, stay safe and keep rocking.